make sure that we are protecting the rights and the liberties of all of us. And that means that we've got to take on this administration on so many levels. I've been at the front of the fight to make sure that ICE and CBP don't come into our communities with masked men and kidnap and deport people. I've been on the front lines of the fight to hold this administration accountable for the corruption and for the absolute lawlessness of so many of these cabinet members and these agency heads who have been slashing funding and slashing staffing for the very things that our community members rely on. And I've been on the forefront not only of being an opposition party, which I believe we have to be, but as I often say, of being a proposition party. We have to put out our vision of what it is that we're calling people into, because we may win this election just being an opposition party, but we're not going to win the next election if we don't actually deliver real results for people, and if we don't show them what our future that we're fighting for looks like. And so, as the former chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, now the chair emerita of that, but also as an organizer. Look, I got into this race never thinking I was going to be a politician, because I'd been outside organizing, starting an immigrant rights organization that you all may know called One America, at the forefront of the fight for $15 minimum wage. Seattle became the first major city in the country to do that, and I was right there on that committee that made that happen. And my belief is that we have a real opportunity and a real necessity to make sure that working people can actually have a life of dignity, can actually have one job that earns a high enough wage to send their kids to get a good education, to make sure that there's a roof over their head, to make sure that there's food on the table, and to make sure that people have universal health care. I've got that bill in Congress. And of course, to make sure that people can retire with dignity. So that's the challenge in front of us, and our democracy is under attack. And so I believe that my work is to be not only a good member of Congress on the inside, but also on the outside. And that's why on our campaign side, we run a year-round organizing effort. We train and put to work thousands of volunteers, both here at home and also across the country with my list. We started the Resistance Lab, which some of you may know and have been involved in. We've now trained over 30,000 people across the country in all 50 states to actually learn how to effectively and non-violently take on authoritarians and undermine their power and build the power of the people. So that's my commitment to you as a member of Congress, is that I'm going to continue to be on the forefront of all of these battles of protecting our democracy, protecting our planet, protecting our people, and making sure that we rebuild that more perfect union that really works for people across this country and not for the billionaires. So I want to thank you for your endorsement so much. It means so much to me. And it means a lot to me to be in the struggle with a group of such committed people who are on the front lines, yourselves, of making sure that our democracy works through the legislative district process and through civic engagement. So thank you again. And I'm happy to take any questions, Chris, or whatever is on your agenda to be able to.
You are so good at hosting town halls. And we have a big agenda today. We have an important race of who's going to represent us in the state house. So, but I do have one question. I think that is on top of many people's, and I think everyone's mind. It should be the Supreme Court. I mean, we all know that the Supreme Court just gutted our democracy this past week, and we are now seeing states in the South who are ripping away at, I mean, canceling elections. I mean, doing all the things that we have been fighting for such a long time. What can we do, and what can you do as a member of Congress to say no to and stop these states from stealing our fundamental democratic values?
Yeah, look, this was a gutting of the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court's decision in Louisiana v. Calais. They dressed it up as a modernization. That's not what it was. It was a gutting. It essentially said you can't do racial gerrymandering But it's totally fine to do non-racial or partisan gerrymandering. And they had some pretty, if you've read the opinion, they had some pretty insulting pieces in there also where they said, discrimination doesn't exist anymore. We're past that. That racial blocs who vote together, that is a that is there's that doesn't count. You have to show intent to discriminate, which becomes extremely difficult to show given the parameters that they've put out there. They've said that you can't look at historical discrimination, that everything's fine, so it has to be intent in the present moment. So it is really a gutting of the VRA. And I think what we have to do is, first of all, we got to fight fire with fire. I mean, the last time when they started this redistricting battle, as you know, in Florida, and we were able to fight fire with fire, California and then Virginia, other states across the country, they now stand to, we stand to gain one more seat than they do if all of these current redistricting fights hold up. So for the new ones, it is not entirely clear what they will do. There are already Landry in Louisiana. Others have already said that they're going to gerrymander, partisan gerrymandering. And we know that there are several states that have that teed up, and then several that, even if they don't do it for this election, are planning to do it before the 2028 election. And so we're going to have to do the same thing we did with the last fights, and we're going to have to figure out how we redistrict. And we should look at Washington. We obviously don't have as many seats up for grabs that we could take over, but I do think there are states across the country where that's one piece of it. The second piece is we actually have to protect and turn out people between now and the midterms and then between the presidential. We have to connect with our base. This is why I think the proposition agenda is so important, because I think there are a lot of people in those states that they might redraw that are not going to vote for Republicans. What we need to do is make sure that they vote for Democrats. And that means we've actually got to deliver, and we've got to change some of the outdated structures from the filibuster to making sure we expand the Supreme Court. There's a whole set of structural changes that we need to get across the finish line. If we want to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which we passed in the House, but the Senate didn't have the votes to pass it because of the filibuster, we are going to have to get rid of the filibuster. That's true, by the way, for immigration reform. It's true for minimum wage, but it is certainly true for voting rights. And I don't think it's going to be sufficient for us to get back power in the House or even a simple majority in the Senate and then blame a procedural thing like like the filibuster for not being able to fix voting rights in this country. So I think there's a sort of a 1, 2, 3 set of things that we're going to have to do, but it starts with making sure we fight fire with fire, that we do as much redistricting as we can until we take back power and are able to pass a really strengthened and expanded Voting Rights Act.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate all the work that you do for us, and for our district, for our state, for our country. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And you're
Thank
always
you
welcome to
all.
come back here. So we love you here.
Wonderful. Well, it's so great to see you all. Thank you again for the endorsement. It means the world to me. Appreciate you. Take
Have a good
care.
evening. Bye. Our Congresswoman is amazing. Let's just say that. Um, so we are here today for our candidate forum, but first, if you have not, Karen, can you quickly share your screen of PCO maps? If you have not filed for PCO, please file for PCO. These were maps created by Oliver Moffett, if Karen can get them on the screen.
Just a
Karen?
moment.
Okay. Yeah, our Oliver Moffett at PCO and Shoreline created these maps and really put visualization of where we have individuals who filed for our 192 precincts and places where we have not. And we're all waiting with bated breath.
I know, I'm not, there we go.
So this is the Shoreline Seattle area. You can see lots in the Ridgecrest neighborhood of vacant precincts, also in North Seattle. Many of our Seattle precincts are not filled. And I know that there were some people who just told us earlier today that they filed in Montlake Terrace, but there's a lot of open precincts in Montlake Terrace and on the west side of Linwood. So if you have not filed for PCL, we're going to put a link in the chat. Thank you, Karen. Okay, we're going to now transition to our candidate forum for tonight, and we're going to spotlight our wonderful candidates. How they are on the screen is just how I'm see you on my and promoting you to Spotlight. That does not mean anything. Okay, I'm going to review the rules and then we'll get quickly into the debate and forum. So we have 5 wonderful Democratic candidates who seek to represent us in for the 32nd Legislative District, House Position 1. And they want to represent the people of Seattle, Shoreline, Edmonds, Woodway, Linwood, and Montlake Terrace. We're going to begin tonight with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. Just in the introduction, just please introduce yourself and the vision for your seat. Follow the opening statements. We're going to move to a rapid fire speed round, which you're going to have 15 seconds to answer a question. It will be that simple. We don't want any substantive comments in the speed round, just yes or no or short answer. And then we're going to have the then transition to substantive policy questions. We had about 50 questions suggested by our 32nd district members. We have whittled them down and edited them down to about 9 of them. You're going to have 90 seconds to respond to each of the questions. And then please keep your eye on the timer. Karen's going to serve as timer tonight. We are going to allow you to finish your sentence, but be mindful of the time. And then we're going to conclude with a 2-minute closing statements. After the opening statement, we're going to rotate who goes first. And we're going to put the questions in the chat for everyone. We're going to go in opening statements in alphabetical order. So Chris, that would be you.
Here we go. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. Well, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak, specifically the LD. My name is Chris Bloomquist. I am going for the position 1 seat that has been vacated for the state house. So a little bit about who I am and why I'm running. The reason I'm running is to defend against tyranny, plain and simple. As a Latino and Chilean American, I care deeply for our constitutional rights and our civil liberties. I walk this earth because my mother, Carmen Subiabre, escaped Chile during Pinochet's terror rule. And my grandmother lost her life at the hand of the government. I never got to meet her. What is happening with ICE, with our tax and education, our environment, our BIPOC community brothers and sisters, are all strong signs that we are facing fascism right now in America. As a Latino, I'm proud to say that I was able to publicly testify in strong support in Olympia for Senator Valdez's demasking ICE bill, and that this bill has become law. It's a small step, but it's what we can do. Trump and his sycophants must be stopped. And it starts with defending our rights and our democracy right here, right now. In terms of my campaign, I am keeping it positive and strong-willed. It's going well. I've had the chance to meet over 5,000 voters. I've been doorbelling since January. I know the issues around affordability, climate change, school funding, and unemployment, and I have strong expertise in all these areas. I bring 20 years of recruitment to the table. I've put nearly 1,000 people to work. As a father with 2 daughters in public schools, I've been to years of public school funding forums and heard the issues around what they are and why we're in this spot. As a youth sports coach for half a dozen years, I've been able to mentor and coach the youth and give them empowerment through sports and through learning. And as an environmentalist, I've been attending clean energy conferences, Pacific Northwest Climate Week. I put on our first ever career fair. We had over 300 attendees last year, driving the local economy. So I'm excited to use my career background to serve all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Will.
Thank you, Chris. I'm gonna go with my opening statements. Fellow Democrats and everyone else who joined us today. Appreciate you being here. My name is Will Chen. I'm running for the State House position number 1, which is Cindy Lou's vacated positions. Because I believe families, senior and immigrant families, deserve stability, opportunity, and a fair shot to build a future in the community they call home. I came to this country on my own with very little. I worked multiple jobs while earning wages and building a future for my own. This experience shaped my values and taught me the importance of hard work, fairness, and opportunity. Today, I serve on the Edmonds City Council, and my background as a former corporate auditor, accountant, and small business owner give me the grounded perspectives on how government decisions affect peoples in the real world. Right now, too many families are feeling squeezed. Housing costs are rising way faster than wages, and everyday expenses keep climbing. I supported the millionaire tax because Washingtonians deserve a fair tax system where working families are not the only one carrying the burden. I believe Democrats can be both compassionate and practical. We can support labor and protect good jobs, address climate change responsibly, and improve permitting timelines so we can build more housing and make sure government deliver real results for the people it serves. That's the kind of balance and result-focused leadership I will bring to Olympia, and I will be honored to earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Nand. I'm the youngest Edmonds City Council member. I'm also the first woman of color ever elected in the city of Edmonds. I'm a solo attorney and a small business owner in Edmonds. I'm also an animal rights activist. I'm the former first vice chair of the 32nd District. And I joined politics in 2015 because I wanted to fight Donald Trump. And I was very worried that we were going to lose the Supreme Court appointments and Roe v. Wade, and women in this country would start dying because they did not have access to abortions or reproductive health care. And unfortunately, that happened. But enough about me. I want to talk about what I want to do for you if you choose to endorse me to be your representative in Olympia. We need somebody who will have the courage to go to Olympia and tell the people in power that the status quo is not working for the majority of us in this state. There are 7.7 million people in this state, and not all of us are high net worth individuals. Not all of us can afford to donate $1,200 to politicians, but our voices still need to be heard. The city of Edmonds, I'm really proud of the anti-corruption measures that I have supported. When the former administration was spending the city into a fiscal crisis, I stood against the political establishment. One thing I'm particularly proud of is proposing to defund the $10,000 training budget for the city of Edmonds when we were laying off 48 of our employees. And we had to defund their training budgets because I didn't think taxpayers should be spending money on our travel and our hotel when we were having to get rid of the people who had been serving our community for decades. I think that we need to fundamentally change how we fund government in this state. And I think it's going to ultimately take a state constitutional amendment. And what I hope happens, whether you choose me or you choose someone else, that you choose somebody who will have the courage to go to Olympia and stand up. Don't want to say changed. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a loud closing chime, but we will allow you to finish your statement, your sentence. And Keith. Oh, sorry, Danica.
Hi, I'm Danica Noble. I'm a PTA mom. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lifelong public servant, and I've been a proud union member. And I'm in this race to lower the cost of living, make sure that technology works for people, and finally deliver on the strong public education our kids deserve. I've spent 20 years taking on some of the most powerful companies in history. I've been fighting mergers in our community that would spike grocery prices. I've been pushing back on Wall Street schemes that would profit off our healthcare and even challenge landlords that want to use AI to raise the rent. I'm anti-monopoly, and I worked for the Federal Trade Commission for those 2 decades. But when companies get too big, they underpay workers, they overcharge families, and they hollow out our communities. I believe in markets where local businesses can thrive and families can actually get ahead. I've been putting affordability laws to work for 20 years, and that's the work I'll continue in Olympia. My grandfather, a pastor, taught me that with privilege comes responsibility, and that's why I quit my job, 7 months short of a pension and healthcare, to bring this fight home. I'll stand up to corporate power, I will fight for our kids, and I will never back down from doing what's right for this community. My campaign is built on 3 pillars: delivering on a strong public education. Students in the 7th richest state in the nation shouldn't have the quality of their education depend on their zip code. Bringing responsible tech through data protections, robust innovation, and protecting kids online. Congress isn't going to do it, and we have a window this big. When I'm elected, I will be the only person in Olympia who has AI expertise who doesn't work for big tech. And finally, building a fair economy where corporations are not allowed to profit from fraud or monopolies. Education's transformative, and I've been involved in our PTA as one of the strongest grassroots organizations in this state for the last 5 years. I've been going to Olympia, asking them to fund education. First, I couldn't even get meetings with my legislators. Then I brought more people, and last year I brought a busload of students, teachers, and transit. We got lots of pictures, but we didn't get the funding. I'm tired of asking for the money. I'm trying to be part of the solution. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. And now, Keith.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm Keith Scully. I've been on the Shoreline City Council for the last 10 years, and I'm honored to have the endorsement of Cindy Ryu, Shoreline's firefighters, and over 40 local and state elected officials. I'm running because I want to live in a Washington where healthcare is viewed as a human right and accessible to all, where every tax is progressive, where we're funding not only K-12, but early learning, trade schools, and community colleges fully, and where the environment is always considered and is usually considered first. What I've just said to you is not particularly novel. It's not even original. It's what our state party platform is all about. I hit, with this afternoon's doors, I've hit 5,380. And I ask one question: what do you think we can do to make Washington better? And what I've heard is basically what I just outlined. Some people are concerned about niche things, but most people, the stuff I just talked about, that's what we all want. That's what defines us as Democrats and what should define us as a state. How do we get there? Most of how we get there is the stuff we are all doing already. We vote, we protest, we go to city council meetings, we go to the legislature, and we lobby. But we also need leaders who are willing to take risks and leaders with a strong work ethic. When I came before this body 11 years ago, I said I was going to put sidewalks in parts of Shoreline. We did that. I got a measure on the ballot, and then I stayed up late in Robin McClellan's basement putting stamps on envelopes and then doorbelling the city to make sure that thing passed. That's the work ethic that I'm going to bring to Olympia. Second thing we need is leaders who listen. I've done that at 5,380 doors, and I will continue doing that if I'm down in Olympia. Finally, we need advocates, but not aggressive people who get lost in their own egos or believe that what they think is always right. I'm very proud to be part of the Shoreline City Council, where we all get along and we treat each other and citizens with respect, and we get things done. Looking forward to the questions, and I hope to earn your endorsement next Wednesday night.
Thank you. Now we're going on to our speed round. I trust everyone will remember the order that people have went, and if you went first, you're going to go last on the next the question. So we'll start with Will this time and then go on from there. I hope I don't have to repeat the order every time, so please be good about that. The first question, we'll start with this. These are, again, I want no more than 15 seconds. We're not going to put a timer on, but often these are yes or no questions or one-word answers or short answers we're looking for. The first question will, and everyone will answer all of these questions. The first one is pineapple on pizza, yes or no? Will?
Sorry, I shout out yes loudly, but I was mute. Love pineapple on pizza.
Just everyone keep their mics on so we can just go quickly here. Jenna.
Okay.
No.
No.
I'm allergic to pineapple.
Ha! Strong yes. I love Hawaiian pizza. Keep it coming.
Okay. Jenna, we'll start with you this time. If you weren't running for office right now, what would you be doing with your Wednesday nights?
I would be I would probably be crawling in the bushes trying to rescue a rabbit that somebody in Edmonds or Shoreline called me about.
For me, these meetings are always at the same time as the North Precinct meeting, so I'd probably be at that.
I missed Seattle United tryouts tonight. My son was doing it, and I couldn't be two places at once.
Mine's also a kid answer. I would be coaching my daughter's ultimate frisbee practice and tossing with her.
Yeah, I will be teaching my son Chinese classes. He's learning, and actually, one of his interests lately is my native mother tongue, which is Diogenes. It's a very unique local dialects. So somehow he learned English history, and he picked up this local dialect. So he was asking me about it. I was really surprised,
Very
happily
nice.
surprised.
Okay, third question. What is your favorite Washington State park?
I think that my favorite park has got to be I had a great time at Cape Disappointment this year with my kids. We listened to ghost stories all the way down. Some of those lighthouses are supposed to be haunted, and we rented a lighthouse to stay in for 2 of the days on the park, but the stories were so scary we had to leave after one night.
Moran State Park on Orcas, and I honestly can't tell you why. I just love that place.
A Deception Pass. The views are spectacular. It's just stunning. Bring the family, bring out of towners. It's great.
Yeah, I have to say Mount Rainier. When I go there, it's like an all-day trips, and just love the beauty, the lake, the mountains. It's a treasure.
For me, it's definitely Doral Cove. Of all the camping and kayaking trips I've taken, it has the best bathrooms. They're always clean and showers, and I just can't recommend it enough.
Question 4. What is your favorite locally owned business here in the 32nd District?
Young.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just skipping.
Yeah, I'll go first. I love the TNT Seafood Restaurant on Highway 99. It's the best Cantonese food. If you haven't been there, you have to try the Gong Chao Ngao Ho, which is a rice noodle with beef, and they put some onion and secret sauces in there. You're gonna love it.
For me, it's Azteca Mexican restaurants. It's been our family's favorite restaurant since I was 12 years old, and I have a lot of great memories with my dad there.
I'm gonna keep the food theme going. TNT is where we go for my son's birthday every year. My middle son, we go to Spiro's. But doorbelling in this heat, I keep going to our dessert cafe on 99 because the bingsu is so good. Icy treats, tasty.
Cafe Aroma, because it serves as not only a great place to get coffee, it's my office much of the time.
For me, it's Biscuit and Bean. They left. So glad they came back. Biscuits the size of a human head, and amazing, amazing coffee and amazing vibes. Really kind people.
Question 5. When did you last use public transit in our district, and what was the trip for?
Is it mine?
Yeah, I think it's yours.
Yeah, I wrote down after Danica, but that doesn't help me when I'm first. So I took it down conveniently to the Washington Conservation Action dinner last.
Ironically, how do we not see each other, Keith? I did the same thing to the same event.
You were sitting at the table next to me.
I know, but like I took the train I didn't see you on the train,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
took
No,
light rail to
I left early.
the same event. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Did me?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I took the light rail to Chinatown. Yeah, it's so convenient. You park your car at Mount Lake Terrace Station, which is very close to where I live, and you just lay back and read a book, and then you get up at Chinatown Station. So cool.
Oh, I think it's me. The last time I rode public transportation, I think I was taking the light rail to the airport.
I took the rapid ride yesterday to go to a PEPS event for those of you parents who love supporting that group.
Love Peps. Okay, next question. Do you rent or own your home?
I own.
Also on my home with lots of tall trees. Yeah, my front yard is like covered with pollen at this time. And over time, I think for the first 20 years I'm in the United States, I'm okay. But for the last 10 years, my allergy is like kicking me. But love the trees, tall trees, flowers, best
Thank you.
time of the year.
Is it me?
Yes.
I rent a home 3 blocks from my parents' house. I moved there to help take care of my dad when he was diagnosed with a terminal illness.
I'm a first-time homeowner in my home.
We own.
Thank you. Next question. Have you ever been a member of a labor union?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Have you ever been a member of a labor union?
Oh,
I am a current member of NTEU number 344. We helped organize and bring that to the field office. This regime unrecognized us, but still identify as a union member, although at this point, since I had to quit to run, I'm an alumni member.
as a member of the King County Prosecuting Attorneys Association, way back when I was a paramedic, I was almost a Teamster, except the vote failed by just a couple of votes.
Sadly, I've never had the opportunity to be a part of a labor union, and I wish I had because I grew up food stamp poor, and so yeah, love that we have them here and strong in Washington.
It me. I've never myself been a member of a union, but my parents were members of SEA, Seattle Educators Association. I'm very proud to have been raised in a union household.
Thank you. Now we're going to go. Oh, sorry, Will.
I haven't. My turn. Yeah, I'm not a union member myself, but my wife, who taught 24 years at Sawcrest High School, belonged to Washington Education Association, which is really what gets our education and the working family wages. It was lovely. We have to support our union.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to substantive questions. I can't remember who's scheduled to go first. We'll just, I think Will started with the speed round, so Jenna, we'll start with you, and then we'll go in order. Now actually go in order.
Okay.
So the questions, you'll have 90 seconds to answer these questions, everyone. On March 30th, Governor Ferguson signed the historic 9.9% millionaires tax. While this is a landmark win for progressive revenue, it currently only applies to the top 0.5% of earners making over $1 million. As our representative, do you believe this $1 million threshold is the sweet spot for Washington? Or what specific steps do you think the legislature needs to take next to create a more progressive tax system? And I will be putting these questions in the chat.
I starting my 90 seconds. Chris?
Yes, we will start it when you start talking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this question. I was very excited to see the state legislature able to pass the millionaires tax. I've been saying for a long time, we need to change how we fund government in Washington State, and we have the second most regressive tax system in the country. And it reflects a lot in what we see the lived experience of the haves versus the have-nots. I think that this is very important test litigation to go before the state Supreme Court, which has previously struck down every attempt to pass an income state tax in Washington State. And if it's upheld, then I think, yes, the state legislature did hit the sweet spot, and I wholly support any decisions to lower the threshold, possibly down to $500,000 in earned income per year. But if not, then I would also very strongly advocate for an amendment to our state constitution, because I don't think the framers of the state constitution in the late 19th century or the members of the state Supreme Court who interpreted income as property and therefore exempt from taxation in Washington State quite understood the challenges that our state government and our communities would be facing in the 21st century in trying to fund essential services for people. And just the level of betrayal we're seeing now with the unhoused population, people desperate in need of services, and we're simply not able to touch $23 trillion in this.
Thank you.
First thing is
So,
that
okay.
no,
We're
I'm just
just keep-
asking.
We're going to go in the normal order, so alphabetical order with Jenna starting first of these. So Danica, you're up.
So yes, I am in favor of the millionaire tax. And if I were going to change anything about it, I'd probably repeal the estate gift that came in at the last minute. I think we need to, as Jenna pointed out, with the second most regressive tax system in the state. And I mean, the millionaire tax probably gets us maybe to fifth or sixth, but it doesn't get us very far down. So we need to unregress our tax system at many levels. We need short-term, midterm, and long-term progressive revenue sources that are predictable, sustainable, and equitable. So the millionaire's tax is one spot. I personally think it's constitutional, but whether it's upheld, I mean, 5 Supreme Courts, seats up for grabs, that's who's going to decide if it's constitutional. So let's not sleep on those nominations and those races. But I think we do need a suite of progressive taxes, and that means reducing the sales tax. That means reduces some of the most regressive taxes. So we have work to do across the tax code. We are not only the second most regressive tax, but we're the 7th richest state. And so we have money, and we need to make sure that government covers the basics. And right now, our legislature does not raise enough revenues to do that. And you can see it in housing, in education, in healthcare, in food. And so that is really important work to do. And it is work that I will certainly support. And I think from this side, it's hard to tell which of the approaches will have the most political capital. But I think it is important for any of the policies.
Thank you. I think you're going to hear remarkable uniformity from the 5 of us on this, and it is the same uniformity I'm hearing at doors. Even folks who show up on my little screen as Republican believe we need to redo the tax system. So we need to get rid of the regressive taxes or dramatically reduce them and go with a progressive tax. It's an income tax, and I don't think there's any particular sweet spot for that. Basically, everyone needs to pay it with the same system of exemptions that we have at the federal level, and then increasing brackets as income goes up so that you pay a percentage of a percentage at a particular income level. If you make more than that, you pay a higher percentage only for the more you make, and so on up. The regressive taxes, such as property taxes, are driving folks who are in their 80s and 90s and are on fixed incomes either out of their homes or at least into a declining standard of living. The gas taxes and other taxes like that are hurting the folks who can least afford to pay it, like Uber drivers and folks who have to commute into their jobs in unusual hours. We're ready for it. I agree with Danica that I think this current version is constitutional, and I believe the current Supreme Court will hold it so. But if not, then I think you can count on all 5 of us to be part of all hands on deck to get it done.
This is a Go Team Democrat statement. 5 of us are strongly in support of a more progressive tax system. Ironically, I kind of called it ahead of time, and I put my threshold for the income tax actually the top 5% of earners. So my strong hope and support is that we do need to think about not just the top 1 percentile, but the top 5th percentile, because the math doesn't math. There's still not enough revenue to fund everything we want, our public schools, our roads, our public safety. We still do not have enough revenue to cover all of our really basic community needs. But I'll throw a curveball in here because I think what doorbelling's taught me is that there's a lot of misconception on the tax itself. We need to market it better. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that said, well, I'm not in favor of it because my home's worth $1 million and I'm going to get taxed. No, 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 no. It's on income and it's only on the first million after. I've heard this message time and time again about folks being afraid of the tax that's going to hit them today and tomorrow potentially when they clearly aren't in homes that show that they earn, that threshold. So we need to market it better. We need to make sure the public is well aware of actually the mechanics of it. And so we get more support and make a more equitable tax code.
Yes, I am strongly support of the millionaire tax. I think it's one step in the right directions to correct our regressive tax structure. As a CPA, filing tax returns as my job, I have seen how this regressive tax structure is not working for working families, seniors, and people on fixed income. I have to say, the millionaire tax, it is constitutional. And people probably will point back to 1935, 1939, after the Great Depression, when the legislature at the time attempted and it got struck down by the state Supreme Court. That was because of the vote of the Supreme Court at that time. It classified the wages assets, but in the Constitution, it did not say wages are assets. So its timing has changed. The needs are so vast, as stated by my fellow candidates here. I think this is a right time, a right first steps. So the needs so big, and I agree that there are some misconceptions out there as a doorbell as well. So we have work to do, and this is heading to the right direction.
Thank you. I think some of you have addressed part of this next question in your previous answer, but I just want to ask this particular question this way. Even with new revenue, Washington families still pay one of the highest sales taxes in the nation. Beyond taxing the wealthy, what is one regressive tax or fee, such as the sales tax or high car tab fees, that you would vote to reduce or eliminate? And importantly, how would you backfill that revenue?
Okay, so you've already talked about the sales tax. You've talked about car tabs. Keith mentioned the fuel tax. And I guess if you get to be the second most regressive tax state in the nation, you can probably point to any of our specific taxes here. So I think the question is maybe what should we do besides, Keith suggested an income tax. I think that's right. I think a flat tax is one that would be the least litigatable. So I think a flat tax on income, you can have some exemptions at different places, would be a way to really try to get at more progressive, sustainable, equitable, predictable revenue here. And I also have some ideas for new revenue sources, but I guess I'll wait for those questions. So I say, put a blindfold on, point to any tax in this state, it's going to be probably regressive.
So, yeah, I think that's right. But the one that has hit me the most, that I think is affecting people the most, a segment of folks, is property taxes. And we've got a senior citizens exemption in Shoreline. The millionaire's tax actually increased the level, and I hope more folks take advantage of it. But there's a lot of folks I've met that have said, yeah, I may not end up homeless, But every year my quality of life goes down. And that was not what they were promised when they worked for Boeing or when they put money into Social Security. So that's the one I'd hit first. It also goes into home affordability and all those other things that are important. And how you backfill it? Well, so I was very disappointed that the millionaire's tax didn't go to two things. One, K-12 education. Two, reducing taxes, regressive taxes. That's where I think it should have gone rather than being sort of spread like peanut butter, even though it was spread like peanut butter over a lot of good things. So I would look first to reallocating some of that revenue into reducing the property tax burden. If that's not an option, we may have to cut other stuff out of the state budget. I do not foresee any new tax revenue sources within the next couple of years until we know about the constitutionality of the millionaire's tax.
So I would say we're in vehement agreement on, lowering sales tax that hits people the most. It's the most regressive thing about our state. I'd also say, though, for an economic development standpoint, as a small business owner, I would like to see the B&O tax lowered a bit. It is really hard to employ people when the taxes are up for the cost of employment. And I think it really starts with small businesses, thinking about making it more attractive to do work in Washington as a small business and create more economic opportunity that way. In terms of where we're going to get the increased revenue, I think big tech has had a free pass for a long time, specifically on data centers. They're extractive by nature. They enrich the billionaire class, and there needs to be not only more accountability on them, but I think a higher level of tax on them. Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing, companies that own large data centers, they can pay their fair share to help balance the budget when it comes to where the money's going to come from and increase our tax revenue.
For me, I think a couple of things: property tax for those seniors on fixed income. They are struggling. Their income is fixed, but the property tax and cost of living keep rising, and we're forcing some of the seniors to sell their home, and then where they're gonna go. Aging in place is a problem, so I want to see properly restructure or possibly reduce property tax, have a bigger exemptions for the senior on fixed income. And for small business, I think excise tax it doesn't make too much sense for small business because excise tax is tax on revenue. We don't look at their expenses. Sometimes they're losing money, but they still have to pay a share of excise tax. So I like to see some restructuring there. In terms of revenue as an accountant, as a CPA, I always told my clients, and my house, I was teaching my son about how to balance the checkbook. You always look at how much you bring in when you do the budget. You don't spend the money that you don't have. So accountability is also the flip side of the equation. We cannot only talk about revenue. We also need to look at expenses.
Thank you. So I'm very glad that you raised this question, because when we talk about regressive taxes, fines, and fees, we really have to talk about the ways that we are hurting consumers and small businesses in our communities. And unfortunately, government, city government, which is the lowest level of government, but the level of government that has the most contact with people, we have had to fund services in the city of Edmonds, for example, through very regressive taxes, fines, and fees. And we are now at 10.7% in sales tax, which is, along with Linwood, the highest sales tax in the state and some of the highest sales tax in the country. And we are starting to see a trend of contraction in how much revenue we're raising, because the sales tax is so high that we are actually depressing economic activity within our own city. But our property, our levy lid lift of $12.8 million that I motioned last year failed. And we were forced to lay off 2 police officers from our police force at a time when public safety is paramount and people are feeling less safe in our community. They keep telling us, we want more police, we want more co-responders, we want more people providing social services to those in need. And we can't do that with the avenues of funding government services that have been allocated to us under the state legislature and the state constitution. So we're dealing with a population in crisis, and we're trying to get them the help that we need, but we end up having to hurt our small businesses, our consumers, our property owners, and the people who pay those regressive taxes and fines and fees. And I would like to see us reduce those if we're able to pass and implement a progressive income tax.
Thank you very much.
Can you reiterate the order, Chris?
What was that, Jenna?
To reiterate the order that we're supposed to respond to these 90-second questions.
So Danica is going to start first at this next one, I believe.
Okay.
So,
I think it's Keith's turn, actually.
oh, it's Keith's turn. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so too. Phew.
Uh,
After Danica.
at least someone remembers where things are. We're going to switch topics here. We're going to move to education. Every year, candidates pledge to fully fund education as our state's paramount duty. Yet districts like Edmonds and Shoreline continue to face multi-million-dollar deficits. Why do you believe the legislature has been unable to meet this goal despite years of Democratic majorities? And what specifically will you do differently to ensure this duty is finally met?
Yeah, so that's where I started on this campaign. My wife was on the Shoreline School Board. My daughter's a middle school teacher. I've got twins in middle school, which is a weird life circumstance, but there you have it. And I started meeting with everybody I could. I met with WEA, I met with advocates, I met with school board directors, trying to figure out why it was that we couldn't get this thing done. And I never got a clear answer, but mostly what I heard was there's not really one person or people down there in Olympia that this is their absolute top priority. It's so big, it's so many hundreds of millions of dollars, and it seems so intractable that it's easy to just pass the buck. So we had a McCleary fix a long time ago that was supposed to be temporary. We have a prototypical school funding model that only sort of works, and we have not enough money moving into the funding pipeline. Someone needs to pick that up and take it apart and fix it. And it's, the Constitution says it's the paramount duty. This one is fixable. This is not something long-term where we need to wait forever to sort it out. We're Democrats, we'll differ on the details, but we need to make this a top priority. And that, in the short term, is going to mean that some other programs don't get as much funding as we may like them to have. But for me, let's fix this and then move on and fix other things. But let's get this one right first.
I definitely agree. It does start with having a backbone. It is on my campaign lit. It's the number one reason why I'm running. And I also have kids in school, and my daughter actually went to Olympia to advocate for school funding as an 8th grader. And as much as I'm proud of that, it's also kind of repugnant that an 8th grade girl would have to talk to her elected officials about the fact that she can't take the classes that she wants. As a Latina, she couldn't take Spanish class because we don't have enough teachers to even teach language arts at Broadview Thompson. It's despicable. So it's definitely not performative for me when I say I've actually been going to Olympia for a few years with my family to advocate for this. So I agree with Keith. It does start with legislative backbone. The second part, though, this is where I'll take my moral outrage and turn it into pragmatism. As an engineer, it is about, well, what is the root cause? And so I met up with Daniel Steele. He actually does legislative work for a living specifically around school funding. He's done this work for years, and he's not an elected official. He's someone that this is his day job. And I've gone to the school funding forums, and he kind of cemented what I heard of the forums and hearing, our superintendent speak, which is the model itself is broken. We basically rely on levies. The levies are supposed to be the cherry on top for expanded programs, not to fund things like keeping the lights on and having enough teachers. So we need to actually look at a more progressive tax form that helps support these things.
Yeah, I agree. It's my turn.
I know the order.
Yeah, my wife, like I said, has been a teacher for 24 years, so I have been hearing this almost on a daily basis. My son is also a high school student, a freshman. So I think the problem is obvious, but one of the root cause is we don't have enough revenue. So switching from regressive tax structure to a more progressive structure will help ease that. The other thing that I had a privilege of speaking with Edmonds School District and also visiting Marysville, the vocational school facility last week. It was eye-opening that there are other alternative training like skill set, electricians, plumbers. Those are also can develop the workforce and not just the traditional schooling model. So I think fixing our revenue and also having focus on committed to fulfill our constitutional obligation, we need to take it seriously.
Okay, am I going next? Or yes, thank you.
Yes, you are.
Well, I'm so glad you asked this question, Chris. My parents taught in the Seattle School District since the 1990s. And I think what we've really seen, and I've been there when I was a kid and I would go visit my mom and my dad teaching at Ballard High School. My mom was there when Melissa Fernandez, the first Seattle school student ever shot and killed on school grounds, was working there in 1994. And my dad taught at Chief South in the 1990s and would frequently bring home little cards saying that there had been a school shooting nearby. And then I've also been to Roosevelt High School where my mom retired from, and they have marble paneling in the library. Wealthy schools and wealthy communities are supplemented by private fundraising to the point where those students who benefit from those schools get to attend what are called semi-private schools, because those communities, I firmly believe, have no interest in redistributing wealth to schools in poorer communities. And that's why we're seeing so much running to school choice, which is, in my opinion, an attempt to run away from Brown versus Board of Education and reinstitute segregation into schools in the 21st century. That's why we're being told that students in working class communities are not, quote, college bound. And I think that is a betrayal of our children. And we need to fix the revenue structure in this state so that children in Yakima and children in Edmonds or Seattle are getting the exact same investment in their resources. No child is born being not good enough to go to college, in my opinion. And that is
Education is the foundation of our economy and it's the foundation of our democracy. It is transformative and it has been so in my own life. My mom was the first to graduate from high school in her family, put herself through medical school, and afforded me so many more opportunities than she had. My kids have even more opportunities, but it's not enough because, as Jenna was just saying, the quality of education depends on your zip code here, and it's unacceptable. Keith mentioned we have a prototypical school model here. That means we assume a school that doesn't exist and fund to that. That is never going to work. It's never going to be equitable. That is a broken system. We also fund our schools per capita, per student, that is. So that is when somebody leaves the school district, not only does that kid go to a different education, but the school district loses $11,000 on average. But their insurance costs don't go down. Their buses don't go down. Their electricity doesn't go down. So there are only there's only 9 states in the nation that do a per capita funding anymore. This is a wheel that doesn't need to be invented. And so we can look at other states and see how they have been able to maintain equitable funding for the whole schools, and Massachusetts is a good one. Now, at the Educational Crisis Funding Convention, I think that Chris mentioned that and I saw him at this year and the other ones, I have asked legislators to commit to redoing the prototypical school model during the interim because they just don't have enough time. But the truth is, when you become a legislator in the state, you swear to make the paramount duty of every student your constitutional duty. So I don't think it's an option not to do it. And Keith, you're right. There aren't people that make this their sole, purpose. I say I'm running to be the least popular person there. I will not stop fighting for strong public education.
Thank you. Chris, I think you're next to start. We're going to stick with an education theme. The 32nd Legislative District is home to both Shoreline and Edmonds colleges. While K-12 gets the headlines, our community colleges are struggling with faculty pay and aging infrastructure. What is your plan to ensure that these institutions receive stable funding that keeps our tuition affordable for our local workforce?
Well, first of all, it is learning more about it, and so I've made a point to do so. I actually just attended a Shoreline Community College event where they were demonstrating all of their coursework, and it was great. They're showing things like their automotive lab, their technician lab for medical technicians, and it's all about innovation. And so it is in my backyard. I made a point to start building relationships there and learn more about it. And we need to have a cradle to career mindset with education. What people oftentimes forget is that many of our, high school juniors and seniors are going to these community colleges to get AP coursework done and get a head start on their education. So it's also very equitable in that regard because you're not having to pay, the full fees of a University of Washington to take your electives when you do this. So first of all, I really believe highly that we need to invest in it. It is cradle to career. And that I think another part of it, let's see, plan to ensure the institutions receive stable funding. It comes back to, I think, getting private industry to invest in it as well. Private industry benefits from these programs. I think we need to have our local, the Microsofts of the world, the Amazons of the world say, hey, when we need technicians and things of that nature for entry-level positions, we should be putting their investment into these as well and get corporate America to be good neighbors and good investors in their communities.
I think it's my turn. So when I first immigrated to the United States, I started with community college. I was at Clinton Community College in Clinton, Iowa. So that's where I get educations, and then later on I transferred to University of Iowa. So I see that pathway of launching from community college, 2-year colleges, and then on to a 4-year university. That's such a wonderful way, a launch pad for many people, even adult students like myself. So I see tremendous value in this system. And having the privilege to teach accounting at Edmonds College, accounting 101 and 201. So I also benefit from the other side of seeing the students who are going through the program. So I think in terms of education funding for colleges, we have to be creative. And one of the things that I was talking to college president Imi Singh, one of the programs that can help generate some revenue is bringing international students from overseas and charge them more healthier tuition, but also having local businesses to chip in, and also public funding as well.
Okay, is it my turn? Okay, thank you. I love this question. I am a very proud graduate of Edmonds Community College, as it was called at the time. Now it's called Edmonds College. And I think when we're looking at trying to train a competitive workforce for the 21st century, high school diploma just does not cut it anymore. I don't think the multinational corporations are going to open up their pocketbooks in any significant way and fund this because it's always just easier for them to get workers from other countries that fund higher education fully and bring them here. So they actually have a pretty sweet deal. They don't want to have to pay living wages to community college workers. And we just need to build this into and expand the concept of a K-12 education. I benefited from going to a community college. And I think that when we look at our people in our communities, we see people, I say on my campaign website, 3,000 people died of opioid overdoses in Washington state. in 2024. And I recently went back to my alma mater, Edmonds College, and got to meet or see a presentation by Ryan Henry, a young man who said that he went from being an opioid addict to becoming a counselor through the Addiction Studies program. And until we offer a pathway and an investment in our people that we value their lives and we want to see them succeed and we want to see them become successful, productive members of society, we're not meeting our obligations as well.
Community colleges get their funding mainly from state funding, but also local levies, tuition, and federal grants. Now, current cuts, you may have heard about some of these from the federal government, are impacting our local community colleges, and so are the immigration impacts, because international students who make up an important part of the student body at our community colleges aren't there as well. So, for example, Shoreline Community College, that has quite a bit of, a very big array of services they offer, and they teach a variety of students of different ages and different family status. They're facing a $4 million budget crisis over 2 years because of some of the federal funding that's gone. And so they are seeking more money from the state government. I think it's important that we fund education because it is a pathway to help people stay in our communities and find jobs. But I also think that we need to get creative here in how to find more funding revenue. I like the ideas of having, private partnerships if people would open up their wallets. But in the cases where they won't, maybe we take a look at some of the states that our Attorney General office has brought a number of incredible lawsuits. And some of these lawsuits can be used perhaps to fund education. So our AG's office has got some of the big lawsuits against some of the giant social media companies. And you've seen a break here where they are finally starting to have to pay for some of their exploitation of children or monopolization. And I think that you could have either broker settlements or some of whatever the remedy is there to fund higher education.
Thank you. So the community colleges provide a lot of super important things. One is a place to go if you don't yet know entirely what you want to do with yourself, and you've graduated high school and you're not ready to commit to a technical program at a 4-year school. It takes some extra time to learn the basics and move on. They provide a path for folks who had challenges earlier on in life to be able to get a high school degree and learn some basics. And they provide super specialized training you can't get anywhere else. And Shoreline is a great example of that because we have the automotive tech program. They've got to be funded by tax money. I mean, the basic stuff, you're not going to find corporations, and I don't want to be dependent on corporations to fund the basic programs of community colleges. The specialized programs are different, and Shoreline does partner with automotive companies to get the automotive tech program going. Nursing programs, dental assistant, dental hygienist programs, those kind of things can be funded, and they can help drive revenue a bit. But at the end of the day, this is an education thing, and this is part of funding education in Washington. My personal priority, because I think we can fix it, is K-12 first, but then we move on and we say, this is also important. We can't let this one slip through the cracks either.
Thank you. Will, you're first on this one. A majority of Democrats support universal health care. Yet the Washington Health Trust, this year House Bill 1445, failed to move to a floor vote this past session. Moving beyond a simple pledge of support, what is your specific legislative strategy to move this bill through the legislature?
We have to walk across the aisle. We have to bring everybody to the table. This is not a party line issue. This is healthcare. Healthcare is human rights. So my strategy is working with everybody, whether you are Dem or R or independent. We need to fully come to support this concept. I have relatives who live in Taiwan, and they enjoy their healthcare system there. I have friends who just take a vacation to replace their hips to get surgery done over there. So I think other countries can do that. I think we are a healthy state, we're a wealthy country. We can do that if we put our mind and reach across the aisle. We can get it done.
Jenna, you're up.
Thank you so much for this question. First of all, I do support universal health care, and I, like a lot of people, have questions about how we would fund it. And I think when we look at what distinguishes the United States from other countries that are able to support universal health care is we are often told that we have to spend billions of dollars in research and development, and we have to fund that on the backs of our healthcare consumers, and then other countries get to benefit from the research that we do. So I think that we have to find an important middle ground. We have to look at the role of private equity in the healthcare industry and the business model, because I know people who will fly to Eastern Washington to get a root canal because with the price of their plane ticket, it is cheaper for them to get that root canal in Eastern Washington than it is in the Puget Sound region. And so we have to start looking at more standardization of prices, and that means going into for-profit healthcare institutions and opening up their black books, which they use to price out their modeling, and they're not going to like that. But I think that we can find a way to still incentivize private equity investment in healthcare and innovation, which has made healthcare in the United States cutting edge of the world, and still make sure that we are fully funding healthcare so it is accessible to the people in this country who are being asked to fund it. And I currently have breast cancer, and I'm just horrified by the Trump administration trying to cut subsidies. And I just don't think people should be choosing between bankruptcy or life-saving care.
Like the other folks here, I'm in support of universal health care. It is a human right, and we can do it. There are a few states that are working towards this, but Vegas's line is looking good for Washington. It's true that this didn't go to a vote last year, but I think that's two-part. First, the millionaire's tax got a lot of the wind and the airtime. And second, for crying out loud, the legislators were only there for 60 days. A lot of good bills that had the votes didn't pass because they didn't spend enough time there. So the big state and the rules from when we used to just have to get back to pull the crops, probably we need to spend more time on the field. But I've spent at least the first half of my career at the Federal Trade Commission looking at healthcare markets, and there are some solutions that we can look at from other states here. My favorite bill last year was Oregon's Get Private Equity Out of Healthcare. They've started to divest these companies in Oregon. It's already bringing down the cost of healthcare there. And there were 3 states that did something different for pharmacy benefit managers. That's who decides who gets to fill what drug at what price. And states have made their own, or they've said you can't be both the pharmacy and the pharmacy drug benefit manager. And that has started bringing prices down. So I will be all behind getting the momentum to go for universal healthcare. But in the meanwhile, let's stop the mergers that drive up prices 20%. Let's get healthcare to stop profiting off this human right. And let's look at where things are already working and bring that here. So that get private equity out of healthcare. Let's do that for education. Let's do that for housing. I think private equity is an exploitive business model that we don't have to use. It doesn't help anybody in the community that it's in. So let's get rid of it. Let's start with healthcare.
So I met very early on with some of the folks behind the Washington Health Trust movement. There's a nonprofit that's actually pushing it, and they wanted the legislature to put it on the ballot as an initiative, and/or they would do it themselves with signatures. And after that meeting, which was well over a year ago, I started asking legislators sort of what they thought about it, and the appetite for it was zero. And I heard the same thing over and over again, and it was a worry that strategically it might be a bad move to just throw it on the ballot. There will be a significant pushback, an initiative or a referendum. There is huge money in healthcare from a lot of entities that just make profit off of it. And Danica accurately identified some of them. So this is going to be a long battle. And I've been on Shoreline City Council for 10 years. Some of the stuff I was talking about 10 years ago are finally coming to fruition. We need to be careful with this one, but it is extraordinarily important. There's some other shorter term things like K-12 education that we can get done right away. This one we need to build up to. We need to start identifying the things like equity in healthcare, the mergers, all those things that are causing problems. We need to really make this a front and center issue, message it carefully, and get something out there that will survive an initiative. Final thing I'd note on that is this may become an emergency, and then everything I just said is wrong, and we'll change it. And that emergency is if Trump cuts Medicaid funding. If we end up with Apple Health being defunded, we are then face the risk of people literally dying because they can't get care. And then everything's out the window, and this is job one.
Like everyone else here, I believe that healthcare is a basic human right, shouldn't be tied to immigration status, employment status, any status. It should be a basic human right. I strongly support it in terms of getting there. So, look, I'm a farm kid from Nebraska, and I've been a Democrat since age 18 in a deeply red state. So I know how to build allies. It's not about vilification. It's about coming to the table and saying, how can we get some legislation done? So it does require crossing the aisle. Happy to do that. Many friends and family members are staunch Republicans, but I still maintain relationships with them. So I'm a relational person. It's about checking your ego to get legislation done. The other thing I would kind of say is follow the money. Healthcare premiums, healthcare insurance is expensive. Why? Because we're forced to do a lot of diagnoses we don't want or need. I'm experiencing that literally right now. I need knee surgery or some kind of a help for my knee. And I was forced to get x-rays, then MRIs, and all of these additional steps. And it took months just to get care. That's expensive. That raises our premiums. And it's because insurance companies drive a lot of these laws and legislations. I would love to see naturopathic healthcare be invested in because we could actually lower our costs. We'd lower our prescription drug costs because we'd be on pills less. Why not fully fund more chiropractic care, acupuncture, things that are natural and that don't feed into big pharma. Get the money out of healthcare when we invest in more naturopathic solutions. We can lower the costs and get them more efficiently.
Thank you. I mean, we're going to, as a follow-up question to that, and thank you, Larry, for putting this follow-up question here. Yes or no answer, would you publicly say that you would sponsor or co-sponsor a universal health care bill? Will first. Yes or no, Will?
Say yes. You cannot hear me?
I got you. Jenna?
Yes.
Danica?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes,
Chris?
Yes.
that was a softball.
You have to have some softballs here. Okay. Too many boxes up right now. Washington's 2025 rent stabilization law now protects many renters from extreme spikes, with this year's cap set at roughly 9.7%. However, builders often argue that these caps make it harder to finance new projects. How will you ensure that we protect our current renters from being priced out while also providing enough incentives for builders to keep building the thousands of new homes our district needs?
Who's up? Sorry.
Jenna.
Jenna's up.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for this question. First of all, I do support rent stabilization because we're seeing a lot of private equity-backed and out-of-state landlords who are coming in, and the rent spikes are not rationally tied to the market, but they're being driven by AI. So one landlord might have their rent set a certain rate, and then the AI for another landlord goes out and sees that and decides to go up or down. So what's driving the really irrational rises in rent is not mom and pop landlords who tend to rent over long periods of time to the same renters, but landlords who are trying to deliver value for shareholders on Wall Street and like it's really disgusting, but Jeff Bezos is part of a private equity group that's buying up starter homes that were home equity options for the middle and working class and turning them into rental homes to line his pockets, because apparently he doesn't have enough money. So I really think that when we're talking about builders wanting to build new homes, we have one of the hottest real estate markets in the world here in the Puget Sound area and in Washington State. And we need to start, I think, flexing a little bit of money with muscle with these developers to say, hey, if you really want to take advantage of all the incredible economic opportunities here, we need rent stabilization, and we need to find ways to increase more building of home equity options for middle and working class families like my parents when they immigrated here, to be able to build intergenerational wealth. And if you're paying rent to a big out-of-state landlord, you're just never going to be able to get ahead. You're never going to be able to have something pass on to your kids.
So our state has brought some kind of historic wins for renters, and the next short-term steps there are to put that in plain language so that renters know what their rights are, and then put that into many, many languages, because not all renters speak English, so we need to make sure that that's out there. So that's first. And then second, we need to start and continue the historic like levels of funding for the Housing Trust Fund, which is kind of a way to incentivize the types of building and that we want, and that can increase supply. And I appreciate Jenna mentioning the Real Page and some of the AI landlords. That stuff I worked at the Federal Trade Commission, and also worked on with other federal prosecutors and even our own attorney general. So it was really kind of like a hub and spoke. So you had the company at the middle that was getting information that would otherwise be illegal to share, and then telling the landlords what to charge to extract every last little bit of consumer welfare out. So that's stuff that we can still tighten a little bit. And then another thing we worked on at the Federal Trade Commission, is something you see in the Mamdani administration right now as well, which is to get a reduction of junk fees for rentals. So these are hidden fees that come up once you're renting, you don't know the actual price, and you go to make them, you're trying to get into a new home, and then it costs something very different. And then there are also rules that can help with renters in terms of how much you can charge at first when somebody gets there. And if those are not capped, and in some cities, they certainly weren't capped early enough, it can stop mobility, especially for people in need, including fleeing domestic violence.
So the question was about developers claiming that a rent cap increases the cost of housing or makes it difficult to develop. Answering that question, that's just not true. Any developer who's saying that is not being candid about what's actually driving housing prices. Untying the Gordian knot of affordable housing is something, we've spent 10 years doing, and long before my time on the Shoreline City Council. What has increased housing costs is a lot of other things, but it's not the rent cap. So it's the cost of borrowing money, right, which is a significant portion of any investment project. Nothing we can do about that really at the city or the state level. It's the cost of land, which we can affect by changing zoning laws so you can get more multifamily built in more areas. It's the cost of permitting. It takes 2 years from the time you conceive of a project to the time you can break ground to get a permit in place, which means you've got to hold a multi-million-dollar piece of property for 2 years, paying interest on it until you can finally get started. And you've got to pay unbelievable fees to all kinds of experts to get a permit for something which usually is a fairly standard issue housing project. We need to clean up those things, and we need to leave the tenant protections alone. A lot of what's been discussed so far is already in there, and it's being done. It is in multiple languages. You are entitled to an attorney. These are very good things. Anybody who's attacking it on a claim that it's the reason why housing is expensive is quite simply lying.
Excellent. I'll start. First of all, I believe that the finding a rental is an extractive process. I think Jenna touched on it earlier, getting AI out of the rental process. I have a friend of mine that she literally, just in the last few months trying to find a rental, she wasted almost $1,000 on rental application fees, never got any of that refunded, and never ended out with housing. She has to live with her mom. It's an indictment on housing, and it's so we have to get AI out of the rental process. We have to get extractive fees out of the rental process. If you're not able to secure the rental, those fees should be refunded. I think another way it should be refunded is recovering your last month's rent just to get the rental. If you do get it, you're doing first and last month, sometimes 3 months, and it's another barrier to housing in the first place that is causing more homelessness, quite frankly. And it's hidden homelessness where people have to have other roommates and live with families, things of that nature. So we should have an ability for renters to actually recover their last month's rent and repair their own place. Say, hey, I'll take responsibility to make sure that it's rent ready, and we could lower fees that way. Then it comes down to supply and demand. I think when it comes to zoning, we need to be, Keith mentioned this, and I agree, that zoning laws should be eased. We should put them at the city level. They know their cities best. And builders need to be good stewards. They need to be investing in everything around our city so that we don't have to push back on NIMBYism. So they should be investing in plumbing, parking, clean energy, heat pumps, that when they build efficiently, and that will help lower these costs.
Yeah, so the question is how to protect renters and also at the same time providing incentive for the builders to build enough housing. I think first and foremost, I absolutely support rent stabilizations, this initiative to protect renters. But in terms of solutions, I think number one is the permitting. The permitting, the more time it takes, the more expensive it is for the builders to seek on the construction loan, and the clock is ticking, and every second equivalent to interest expense. So I think one of the most effective things that local government and state government can do is streamline the permitting process so that a project don't sit there, just wait for 2 years. That's not reasonable. And another thing is it kind of impacting the availability of housing because it's supply demands. When you have corporations coming with equity money, buying houses and just let it sit, nobody living there, and just try to jack up the market price. We need to discourage that. So one of the idea that I have is charge a empty house tax. If somebody let the house sit empty, we're gonna charge them with 10% of empty house tax.
Thank you. I think that was everyone. So in light of increasing national hostility, Washington passed a new privacy protection for sex designation records this session. What proactive steps will you take to ensure that Washington remains a sanctuary state for transgender people, particularly regarding healthcare access and student privacy?
I love that question. The gender marker bill was written by one of my former interns, Jay Conrad, who worked with Jamie Peterson on that. And I think it's a really clever bill because it's trying to protect some of the most sensitive information and prevent that from being spread out and used by the federal government right now, especially with kind of overreach that we have. So I think that's a good one. And I think some of the other steps that we've taken to try and limit the sensitive data flow from places that have it, which include government agencies here, but also private companies are a place that we really need to look and to make sure that we can protect the flow of that data. So while I was at the FTC and just upheld today on appeal was a really big case against a company called Kochava, and they were a data broker, and they would ping cell phones maybe 300 million times a day. And they would sell that data to people, including governments that wanted to know if you were at a specific type of religious facility or a healthcare facility. And so we need to really be sure that we are protecting data privacy in a way that the federal government surely hasn't, and that we are only barely taking little baby steps here in Washington. So protecting data privacy is one of the pieces of my pillar for ensuring responsible technology in this state. And we haven't been able to move those bills very effectively, but it's pretty important that we do. I'm excited about the conversations that have happened in Shoreline and Motley Terrace about the flock cameras. And so protecting data is important.
Thank you. So They'll wait till the clock's, there we go. Didn't want to steal extra time. So I'm part of the LGBTQ community. I'm the B part, and I've got a lot of folks, a lot of friends who are trans, and I have a friend who moved 5 states when he was transitioning from assigned female to male, so he could go through life as what he is, a man. And at this point, unless you're part of his very close inner circle, you would never have any idea. And you shouldn't have to move 5 states to do that. I think we need to be creative about it. I think you're going to see designations on birth certificates. I don't think we're going to get away from that. But when you turn 18 or when you decide to transition, you should be able to choose what's on your official records, and you should be able to get a new one issued. And if that happens, the old one gets permanently sealed. That's how we protect it, is through those very few sort of original documents, things like birth certificates, social security cards, that you will carry with you through life. And you should then be entitled to have the identification that denominates you for who you are. And beyond that, healthcare records are already private. We need to maintain those things. I am also concerned about bills that you're seeing pop up around the country and that we saw here in Washington, like the bathroom bill, like bills that are going to be on the ballot coming up soon as initiatives. We need to make sure that nothing gets through the door on that we don't let in the bigotry that is driving those things. Sorry, that one gets me a little personally upset, but yeah.
It's a great question. As the godfather of a trans goddaughter that was with the family emotionally through a transition, this is very near and dear to my heart. Absolutely. Again, this goes back to healthcare is a basic human right, and that has no status of any kind. And so we really need to protect gender affirming care in all regards. I think it's actually equally as important as a as a white presenting cisgender male to support these things. Allyship it requires everyone, right? And so I'm very proud that actually my brother-in-law came out to me, and that's built on trust. So again, it's really personal for those reasons. I have family members that are directly affected by this. In terms of what else can we do? It is, again, ensuring access to gender affirming care, like I mentioned. It's also listening to the trans community and asking what their needs and priorities are, and making sure that before I ever cast a vote with anything that I do, it's about listening first, then learning, and then legislating. And so it's really about prioritization and reaching out to those partners and saying, hey, Marriage Bridge, for example, what do you see that the LGBTQ community needs, and what are the top priorities so that we can get one win at a time and stack wins upon each other legislatively? So it is about listening to the LGBTQ community, building those relationships, furthering them, and making sure we prioritize based on what they say.
Yeah, I think it's a plain, straight, simple response. Healthcare is a human rights issue. It doesn't matter what your identity, your age, your religious background. It's just a human rights issue. And healthcare data is by law protected. So we need to just hold that line, keep it that way. Just respect everybody's healthcare rights and data privacy rights.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think when it comes to healthcare privacy for members of the trans community who get demonized and legislated against more than any other minority in this country, we can have all the great laws in the books that we want. For example, we can have HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is supposed to provide for the protection of private health information for students, in particular, another federal law, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. But if our laws, the federal laws and our state laws in the Public Records Act and what's supposed to be reachable aren't being enforced by local institutions, then we're not protecting people. I'm a member of the disability community. I have personally experienced the horror of having your private health information exposed by malicious actors, and had family members targeted in that way as well. And our state auditor promulgates the rules regarding destruction of records after 90 days that are supposed to protect people from having information collected and potentially used against them in the future by malicious actors. But if our local institutions and agencies, our local schools, our local police departments aren't following the state auditor's guidance, then we are going to allow massive data exposures. And I personally think it's a violation.
Thank you. The expansion of AI and data centers in Washington is driving massive new demand for energy and water usage, which could and have in other states impacted residential utility bills. What specific laws or impact fees would you support to ensure that big tech companies, and not individual households, pay for the increased energy infrastructure that they require?
Is it me or Danica? I can't remember.
It's you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm getting an F on that part of the questions. Yeah, so for starters, the solution to this is more clean energy, right? So we want data centers to be here rather than somewhere that fuels them off of coal power. We want to protect the environment, and we're not getting rid of these things by banning them. So we need to increase our clean energy pipeline, and that's like affordable housing. That's another giant convoluted thing that really needs to be untangled. Takes multiple years to get new clean energy projects cited. It's a thing called FSEC, the Energy Facility something Siting Committee. It just doesn't work. I mean, we need to be better at getting more clean energy. Until then, we are at capacity on our existing clean energy. It may not even take a data center. It may just be burgeoning population and increasing electrification of the transportation network to get us to the point where we've either got brownouts or we've got, hopefully not, some horrible competitive market where we all pay a ton for our electricity in the hopes of bidding to get enough. We may need to slow down permitting on data centers, but I don't want to penalize them and force them out of state, because I'd rather they're here where we believe in protecting the environment than in somewhere where they don't.
So I love this question. As a clean energy recruiter, this is my daily work. I actually go to RE Plus every year, which is a clean energy conference specifically for solar. I'm good friends with Abby Hopper. She just retired as the president of the Solar Energy Industry Association for the United States. She's a major player. And my point is, when it comes to AI and power, there's some interesting and interesting bedfellows that could come out of this. Agrovoltaics. I actually just created an agrivoltaics across America community in January. And the whole idea is that we put clean energy, solar energy on existing farmland to create more power in rural areas where AI data centers are typically sited. So AI takes a lot of power, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of water. It's very extractive. And if we can bring the economic opportunity, put guardrails on it so that big tech has to pay for this infrastructure, and also invest in agricultural areas. We see that Iowa State University has the largest agrivoltaics test facility in the country. I've been there, and what I've seen is that when farmers use their land in multiplicative ways by having solar on things like beef, on hazelnuts, on tomatoes, on apples, they actually get the benefits of the clean power. They get the benefits of the economic development. And this is how we expand clean energy, is get our rural partners involved and hold big tech accountable for siting those facilities.
My turn. So AI is not that scary. It's a new technology. Remember when the T model come around and replace the horse industry? It actually improved our human productivity tremendously. I think AI is just at a much rapid, faster scale. So as a technological headquarter of the world, the Pacific Northwest, we of course we want to regulate and make sure that it's heading to the right directions. But I don't want to discourage the development and fall behind to other countries like China, who is already getting a good start on that. In terms of impact fee, yes, we do know that they take a lot of energy, they take a lot of water, but we need to hold them accountable. And they have the funding, they have the investment, they have the big dollar behind them. So we just need to come up with legislature that will hold them accountable, make them pay for what they use with appropriate impact fee. But at the same time, learning from the rest of the world who have that clean energy structure already and partner with them.
Thank you. I think it's my turn.
Yes.
I think that we need to just get in front of tech innovation now and stop letting them set the rules. One statistic that's always really stood out to me is that the mining of Bitcoin consumed 127 to 200 terawatts of electricity per hour, which is more than the energy consumption of entire nations like Argentina, Finland, or Norway. And so I don't know what sort of social or economic utility was generated by extracting Bitcoin from a software system. The big tech companies are now asking for permission to build mini nuclear reactors to be able to provide what they call clean energy to power their AI data centers. And I don't think government's done a great job in containing nuclear waste. I don't know if you've heard about the leakages, the ongoing leakages for decades from the Hanford site into the local aquifer. I personally don't think that we should trust the tech industry to set its own rules. We have to strongly regulate, and we have to force them to justify the massive consumption of energy more than just, oh, this is really going to increase our stock on, the New York Stock Exchange, and it's going to make us even wealthier. And the rest of us are going to have to deal with environmental consequences potentially for generations, especially if in this deregulatory environment, they are now permitted to build their own mini nuclear reactors.
So data centers in Washington already use so much energy. They use more than the city of Seattle, Seattle times 3. And the proposed permits for the data centers to come online would use just times 3 for all of the Washington state energy as it is. So there was a little bit of movement in Olympia this year in terms of data centers. We repealed some of the tax incentives, but not all of the tax incentives, and not even all the tax incentives for new data centers. So we need to look at what some of the other states where I think, as Keith mentioned, they're already seeing energy price impacts for consumers. And so what some of the other states are doing, in some states, if you want to open a new data center, you need to generate your own energy. To Jenna's point, some people are saying, all right, good, well, we'll just use nuclear. And I think that that's probably a poor idea to have private ownership of nuclear energy. So we should probably think about doing something other than that. But one of the things that is happening in other states that I think we should really think strongly about, and I've talked to a few legislators about this, is they'll require new data center permits to upgrade our existing energy grid. Now, this is something that could boost infrastructure where we are, and you could tie it to creating tie-ins for green and clean energy. So you can, there's so many people that want to build these data centers. These are some of the biggest facilities in human history. We built the pyramids. We can tie the things we want to the incentives to get these through, and we need to think of ways to make sure that we get the benefit of this bargain.
Thank you. Now we'll go to our last question before closing statements. Will, you have the first, it's Chris, he has the first, this one. Name a current or former Democratic legislator whom you admire for taking a politically risky or unpopular vote. How does their example inform you how you will represent the 32nd District when the safe vote and the right vote conflict?
Um, Senator or Representative Alicia Rule. She was one of the Democrats that came out against the the millionaire's tax, and her reasons very aligned with and she's in a purple district, so I have empathy for it. But her reason made sense. It's not that she doesn't believe that the tax our state has regressive tax. It does. The problem is that it didn't go far enough to specifically allocate funds for public schools. It went into kind of a slush fund. It's not okay. As the first kind of a loophole, intended or not, that I was really disappointed with when it came to the millionaire's tax was, it should have been very prescriptive and line itemed that this revenue coming from the most wealthy is going directly to school funding. I know she got pretty lambasted for that. It takes courage to go against your friends more than it does your enemies. And so I have a deep level of respect and have built a professional relationship with her because of her kind of moral courage on the reasons why. So yeah, that's my answer.
It's my turn. I respect a lot of good legislators are working hard for our state, but I'm going to use my own example on the city council. In 2025, we were in the financial difficulties like many other municipalities. And I was the one in 2023 whistleblower to unveil these problems. But in 2025, when our city asked the residents to pay the fire services, which is almost double the city size, the city portion of the property tax. On top of that, the city also want to raise another $14.5 million property tax. So if you consider the two, that's almost tripling the city portion of the property tax. So I didn't want to put the seniors on fixed income through that struggle. So I say no, which I get a lot of pushback from my colleague. And but I think my gut feeling was right, because it turns out 59% of the voters agree with me. So that's the kind of balancing and courage that I have. Is I stand up for my constituents.
Thank you. Is it my turn?
Yes.
In 2020, in the wake, or 2020 to 2024, in the wake of the slaying of George Floyd, there was a strong push at all levels of government to defund the police. And it was very much a popular slogan at the time. And although I do disagree with them on some issues, I'm actually glad that our current legislators in the 32nd District didn't join that because of the harm it would do to public safety. Myself and two other BIPOC elected officials actually wrote a letter to the editor asking that the defund the police language stop being used as a claim that it would help or protect communities of color, because community colors, we are often more victimized with violent crime at a higher rate than the general population. So we actually have a greater need for public safety. We saw that during the pandemic when anti-Asian and anti-immigrant hate targeted a lot of people in our communities. And I'm just really glad that even though it would have been really popular to jump on the bandwagon and say, yes, we need to defund the police, that we had legislators who are willing to take a more nuanced view of, we do not support police brutality. We do not support homicides or use of force that are unjustified, but communities still do need police, and we need to be able to protect vulnerable members of our population. And we need to do that in a less
You can finish your sentence.
I think that we need to do that in a more pro-justice manner that is still practical.
To find a Democratic legislator that I admire, I don't have to look beyond this meeting. Pramila Jayapal has stood up time and time again, taking unpopular votes on budgets and wars. And as she mentioned here, fouting the Anti-Monopoly Caucus. So let me tell you how popular it is to call out monopolies in Congress that runs on money. That is not a popular take. And she has stood up and held them accountable and brought legislation. And her anti-monopoly, or the Monopoly Busters Caucus, now has so many members, and they are pushing legislation. And this kind of like smaller, obscure, what it used to be called antitrust, not as popular, is actually starting to show up in legislation, in bipartisan legislation. And it's something that she brought by standing up for what she believes, and something that I believe as well, which is the economic disparity caused by the greatest concentration of wealth and power in history, which is what we're living in right now, deserves people to stand up and fight and not back down. And so I admire her for that, and I'd like to do the same.
Cindy Ryu, for her support of gay marriage when she was part of a religious community that was very much not supportive of gay marriage. That happened early in her career. And I don't know if the story is true or not. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not. But the story I heard is that when she went to church that weekend, everybody stood up and turned their backs on her as a way of expressing that they were disappointed that she had taken the view she'd taken. Not part of her religious background, but she firmly believed that it was the right thing to do and did it. And that is one of the defining moments of why I have supported her since then, and I continue to do so.
Thank you. Since we're a little bit ahead of schedule, I'll ask the one quick last speedy round question that we didn't get to before we go to closing statements. So we'll start with you, and you'll do the first closing statement as well. But very short answer here. If you were in a school play, would you rather be on stage performing or behind the scenes as part of the stage crew? Will?
Behind the scene.
Behind the scenes, stage crew. Okay. Jenna?
I was a choir girl in high school, so I would be performing, hopefully.
If it was singing or musical, I definitely need to be behind the scenes.
Yeah, I did tons of high school plays, except the musical was in spring, and I was very nicely asked to be stage crew for that one.
I've been in 5 rock bands, and my stage name is Turbo. I love performing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're to closing statements. Will, you have the floor.
To the organizers, the PCOs, my fellow candidates, and everyone who took the time to be here tonight. This is a strong field, and I think it says something good about our party and our community. We all care deeply for our future of our district. What sets me apart is the perspective I bring to Olympia. I came to this country on my own, worked multiple jobs to build a future, and learn early that progress only happens when opportunity is paired with accountability and real results. As a city council member, a former corporate auditor and accountant and small business owner, I know how important it is for policies that not only sounds good on paper, but actually works in people's daily life. I believe in protecting workers, defending public education, supporting labor, advancing climate solutions, and building fair economies for working families, seniors, and immigrant families. But I also believe voters are looking for leaders who can move beyond the slogans and divisions, leaders who will listen, bring people together, and focus on solutions that actually work. I believe we can be both ambitious and practical at the same time. We can tackle affordability, build more housing, protect family wage jobs, and move forward with the climate protections in ways that are economically sustainable, prevent leakage, and ground in reality. That is the kind of leadership I'll bring to Olympia: grounded, collaborative, and focused on results. I'll be honored to earn your support and your votes. Thank you so much.
Jenna.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone for your time and attention on what is a beautiful Wednesday night, that you were here listening to us discuss ideas for how we can make our community better. I have been where you are. I've been involved in this organization since 2015. I've been a PCO. I've been in the trenches. I've been doorbelling for other candidates. And when I'm asking for your endorsement, I'm not just asking to be your representative. I'm asking to be your messenger. We desperately try every single time that elected officials come before organization to tell them the things that we think are wrong and that we want to change. And we continually feel like our message falls on deaf ears. And if you honor me with your endorsement, I promise you, you can trust me to be your messenger to the political establishment in Olympia. I'm not beholden to special interests. I will always be honest with you about where I stand on the issues. I'll always make time to meet with you to have coffee. I will let you know when I agree with you and when I don't. And my guiding moral compass will always be what is best for 220,000 people in the 32nd district and 7.7 million people in Washington state, and the impact we're having on 342 million people in this country, because what we do in the halls of power affect the lives of so many people. We are making life and death decisions for people and their families. And I just hope that you can trust me to have been here, educated, and listened to all of you for so many years, and to understand the issues that we're facing, the equity, the real changes to how money and power are distributed in our society that we are asking for, so that we can create a better community today and for the generations to come. We want to leave the world a better place than what we found it. And that's why we all became Democrats in the first place. That's why we all started coming to our local LD meetings. And that's why we have been.
So thanks everyone for having me. It's great to be here. I've less experience with the 30-second Dems, and in part that's because there is a law that prevents federal employees from serving as PCOs or running for office. And I expected to retire in the job I was in as an anti-monopoly and consumer protection lawyer, but I felt like I had to do the work that I knew needed to be done at this point. So in enforcing the consumer protection laws, I think that there's a lot that our state needs right now, and there aren't folks that have that experience in Olympia. I drafted a bill last year that got in Olympia to get cell phones out of schools. I offered amendments to the guardrails for minors using AI chatbots, 4 of which were adopted and are now law in Washington. And I think we need to do a lot more to put some guardrails on this AI. I'm kind of with Will. It's not that it's bad. It's a neutral technology, but we, with democracy, is how we should decide what to do with it. And what we don't need to do is keep going the direction we are going, where the billionaires and the trillion-dollar companies get to decide what to do. I spent the last 4.5 years suing Facebook and Amazon, and my part of the Facebook case was online harms for children. That is a depressing thing for a mom with kids in elementary, middle, and high school to work on. And it is part of what motivates me to come to try and serve in this very brief window where we can actually, the states are where it's happening, where we can actually make sure that technology works for people and not the other way around. So I appreciate the chance to be with all these folks. I love how much we've agreed on, but we have very different backgrounds in terms of experience. And I think that there's just a time right now in Olympia where it makes a lot of sense to have people who have experience in consumer protection and AI expertise who don't work for big tech, because we just have a small window here. You have to be part of it.
So I've actually been a PCO since either 2008 or 2009, and at this point, this group is sort of like extended family to me. I mean, some of you I've known for that entire time. Some people are new. People have come and gone. People have died. But what we've seen tonight, which is 5 people, all of whom would do just fine in this job, is why this group is so strong. I mean, we've always had an embarrassment of riches up here. 5 of us have agreed on the core things. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't. We've all got a unique perspective, but that's good. And I just want to relay one, problem that I've come across in doorbelling this time in 5,380 doors that I was not anticipating. Twice now, I have been mistaken for Chris Bloomquist. Twice. Once was in his neighborhood. That's understandable. Today it was Meridian Park. And this gentleman was so confused about why I was at his door because we had talked a couple of weeks ago on the street. And I was confused. He gave me back my card and said, I don't do that. And as I'm walking away, I see a Build with Bloomquist sign in another person's yard and was like, oh, all right. So I have doorbelled many of you. And that's just because you happen to be in the precinct I was doorbelling that day. But if you see me in the future and I've got a big sign saying I'm not Chris, you will know why. Thank you.
Wow. If you're trying to rattle me by laughing, you did a great job.
No.
I'll just say this. It has been such an honor to go through this process. Look, the 32nd district is in excellent hands. There's kind of a love fest here in my mind of such mutual respect. I think every one of us everyone wants to do the job capably, honestly. And what a great thing to be able to say when, the Republican that did announce, I mean, good luck. I mean, honestly, the LD is going to have a very strong Democratic voice in the House. Mutual respect to everyone. In terms of the differences, so it comes down to my versatility. I believe that representative democracy really does mean representatives from all walks of life. And so we need more engineers, we need more coaches, we need more BIPOC community members, we need people that have different backgrounds. And, as a Latino, I bring that lens as the lens of a small business owner. I bring the lens of economic development. As an environmentalist, I bring the lens of climate equity and justice. And then it comes down to you have to be fearless. And, I've been breaking bread with Republicans my whole life because I have to, because I grew up in a town of 687 people in rural Nebraska. So I think it takes a bit of fearlessness to legislate and to find what motivates people and find what commonalities you have because people need us to legislate to get things done. And I have that fearlessness. I would be honored to receive your endorsement, but really just been honored to go through this process. And thanks for having all of us. It's been great.
Well, I think speaking as chair of the district, I am very excited that all five of you have decided to step up and represent us. And I don't know if people are watching, but had a lot of people as attendees, and I know there's a lot of people watching on YouTube. So I think that is just a lot of people who are really interested in our government and are wanting to know who's going to represent us. And I'm confident that all five of you are going to do a great job in Olympia. So we do have a process, and if William were here, he'd say that our endorsement meeting is next week, and so we are going to go through and we're going to make decisions next week on which candidates we'd like to endorse this cycle. So please come back. I want to also thank the number of elected officials and former elected officials who were in the room. We had a lot of elected officials show up today, from city council to school boards to our state representatives who were in attendees today. So thank you for coming and participating. So next week we'll have our endorsement meeting. To get an endorsement from the 32nd district, it takes a 60% vote of our members. So we'll see which candidates from state representative to assessor are going to reach that threshold. So our endorsement committee is meeting and has met, and we'll issue recommendations of who their recommendations, and everyone should be able to see those recommendations Saturday or Sunday, whenever we get them back from the endorsement committee. So thank you for being here, and thank you for serving. And we will continue. We have another candidate here, not running for state representative, but for Seattle Municipal Court Judge, and we're going to remove the spotlight from the five of you and give Lindsay Calkins the spotlight.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate your time and the time of everyone who's here. I'm Lindsay Calkins. I'm running for Seattle Municipal Court Judge, position 5. I spent the past 15 years as a trial and appellate attorney focused on criminal appeals and how resentencing works here in Washington. My career has given me a deep understanding of how decisions make our courts affect real people, defendants, victims, and the broader community. I'm also a longtime Capitol Hill resident and a mom of 3. And I experience our city not just as a lawyer, but as a neighbor. I care deeply about making sure Seattle is a place where people feel safe, where businesses can thrive, and where the justice system is fair, consistent, and actually works. Municipal court plays a critical role in that. It's often where people first interact with the justice system, and it has the ability to hold people accountable while also addressing the underlying issues that bring them into court, whether that's substance use, mental health, or economic instability. As a judge, I would focus on running an efficient courtroom, reducing unnecessarily delays, and making thoughtful, legally sound decisions that promote both accountability and stability in our community. I'd be honored to have your support. And honestly, I currently have the support of uh, the King County Executive Gurmai Zahale, and I have the support of Teresa Mosqueda, and I have the support of uh, David Keenan, who's the head of the King County Superior Court Civil Division. And I would be honored to have your support as well. So thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me speak, Chris.
Thank
I
you very
appreciate
much.
that.
Well, you can't leave yet. We do give people, our members, time to ask questions of the candidates who come before our district. So if anyone has a question for Lindsay, please raise your hand. If you haven't been promoted yet, do raise your hand and we can still see you if you are still an attendee. Any questions? Okay, I guess you got off easy, Lindsay. Thank you for coming. Oh, Jenna.
Actually have a question. Hi, I was wondering, hi, I'm Jenna. I was wondering when you look at the new public defender workload requirements that are being put forth from the state Supreme Court, how do you think that would affect your ability to be able to give justice to our community members if we're not able to prioritize all of the crimes that had previously been prosecuted because of the workforce capability of the prosecutor and the defense team?
Right, and thank you so much for the question. That's something that I work on a day-to-day basis as one of the co-leaders of the King County Bar Association Judicial and Litigation Committee. So we work on what the caseloads are, and also how can we make sure that as people working within the court system, how can we make sure that that's better? And so part of the reason that I'm running is to make sure that we can see these cases through and make sure that people get their justice on time. And that's a very difficult thing. And that's been something that's been difficult through the pandemic and then also afterward. And so I think that efficiency in the courtroom is one of my top priorities. And that is something that transcends, that's something to me that transcends political barriers. And I think that it's very important that everyone gets their day in court. And that's something that's important. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm happy to keep talking if you would like.
No, thank you. I think it's really important to see how our leadership on the bench is going to respond to these new budgetary pressures. Thank you so much for your response.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Okay, thank you, Lindsay. And if you want to put your contact information in the chat, feel free to.
Great. I'll put my website in the chat, and thank you all for being here. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you. If you weren't here at the beginning, please file for PCO. We have a lot of vacant precincts out there, and we have a lot of Democratic candidates who will definitely want our help talking this year. So We're now to good of the order. Does anyone have a good of the order? Cray.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Cool. Excellent. All right. So just want to let y'all know it is PCO filing week. And I would love for everybody, especially in Snohomish County, of course, everywhere, of course, but if you got friends in want to be involved in Democratic politics, please file for PCO. If you've forgotten about it or anything like that, you have until 4 p.m. on Friday to do it. But I would not wait to the last minute just in case there's a technical malfunction. So get it done tonight, get it done tomorrow. Try not to wait to the last minute. I'm sure Chris has links. Actually, I think there's something in the chat about the file if you're in King County or in Snohomish County. So file for PCO. And as an aside, I will appreciate good thoughts, feelings, prayers, whatever your faith or non-faith tradition is. I am currently applying for work in the DC area to temporarily reside out there, potentially temporarily during probationary period. I will still be involved with the 32nd along with Snohomish County Dems. During that time, I will, of course, maintain my residency here. It's just I might temporarily get a job on the East Coast temporarily. So I would appreciate good thoughts for that. And thank you for all of you for keeping me up when I felt really down over the last year with everything going on in my life, which I will not go into explicit detail about. But thank you all of you for keeping me up when I fell down. Thank you.
Thank you. William.
No, thank you, Chris. And this is just for information for everybody here. I just saw a Q&A asking, how to be able to view the interviews that we do with the candidates. In our bylaws, any 32nd member can attend any of our endorsement committee interviews as an observer, not as a participant. And in order to get into the meeting, all you need to do is just send an email to us, endorsements@32democrats.org. Again, that's endorsements@32democrats.org. And we'll get the email and we will verify that you are in fact a member, and then we'll send you the link for the Zoom meeting for the interview. The next interviews that we have right now, we have an interview starting at 1:30, then on Saturday, this coming Saturday the 9th at 1:30, 2:15, 3 o'clock, and 3:45. Those are the interviews that we have. And you can, if you want to join us there, just send us an email so we can verify that you're a member, and then we'll get you the link. Anybody got any questions? Okay, that's all I got.
Alan.
Well, good evening, everyone. Alan Charnley, one of your state committee members. Just to let you know, I'm working with a couple of people to set up some voter registration trainings in June and July. So those are probably going to be at the Linwood Public Library, Edmonds Public Library, the one down on about 130th in Seattle, as well as Shoreline, if I didn't mention. And also, I have been keeping up with my goal of at least 250 voters registered, first-time voters, I should say, for myself per month. Right now, stand at 1,184 people for the year. And that's not just in Washington State. Some of them came when I was down in Texas for the training for work for about a week. So I got about, let's see, just over 20 there. 22, if I'm right. Let me find my notes. Well, anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. If you weren't here earlier, I do want to give a big shout out to Oliver Moffett for putting together visualizations of which precincts have been filed. Karen had shared them earlier, and maybe we can pull them back up. But thank you, Oliver, for putting that together. It is a tremendous asset that you have. As we all saw Karen's screen. So this was, I think this was at noon, and I don't know, I believe it, he may have updated it, but thank you for putting this together. And he put it in the chat. So if you want to see closely whether your area or precinct has a PCO, please take a look at it. The blue precincts are precincts that are filled. The clear precincts or non-colored precincts are unfilled. As
And
of
I'll
yeah,
update a couple of times tomorrow as well. So you can just follow the link that I posted into the chat.
thank you, Oliver. And any other good of the order, representatives? Do you have any good of the order? Cindy?
Sure. With the filing week starting on Monday, we cannot use state resources for any outreach. However, if you have any questions of us or need constituency services, we're more than happy to respond. We can always respond. We just can't push any messages out. That's really why you saw a whole bunch of virtual and in-person town halls happening all the way until Sunday, because at midnight on Sunday is when that freeze went in. So just so you all understand. Thank you. And thanks for the great forum.
Thank you. Any other good of the order?
I would like to give a good of the order for the tasty pumpkin pie that we saw on Karen's screen for a second. But that's just me now. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. With that, we are adjourned. I will stop the live stream.